Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We are not here by accident. And I first want to thank all of you, the thousands of you who have come out this afternoon, the thousands of you who believe that the time has come to take a stand. The thousands of you who believe that, like those who stood on this hallowed ground decades ago, who faced the uncertainty of the future, who suffered the indignities of the moment and the poverty of spirit that was foisted on them because of what they had to endure, that no human being should have to endure. There were those who stood on this stand. There were those who stood across there. There were those who stood in Queen's Park, not just in the name of the Barbados Labour Party, but in the name of the Garveyites, and in the name of Charles Duncan O'Neill, and in the name of all others who felt that it was their duty to right injustice and to bring hope and prosperity to a people. I stand here this afternoon similarly motivated. And I not only want to thank you, but I want to thank those who took this platform earlier. From Dale, who let you know how the decisions of one man and a cabinet are wreaking havoc for those who simply want to go about their business in safety, who want to know that they can go in a shop in this country and not have to worry about a stray bullet passing them by, or who want to know that if, God forbid, somebody broke into their house, that there are enough police cars that the police can come to your house and ensure that you are safe and take the information from you. Because if the cars are not working, the police cannot get to move. And if the police are the first agency to receive the cuts from Chris Sinckler, then you begin to wonder whether your safety has now been put at jeopardy and at risk by a government whose only responsibility, first and foremost for governments, is to protect each and every one of us and to preserve law and order. And then you heard Jerome. There could be no better person to speak. And Jerome spoke not as a politician tonight, this afternoon. He spoke as a doctor. And he explained to you this horror when Tony Harris could tell the country that Barbados is now at a stage, little Barbados, that 49 people a month have been having strokes. Today, at 11 o'clock, my constituency assistant came to my house to collect booklets. And less than 20 minutes later, she called me back in a state because her brother, a young policeman, not yet 40, died suddenly today from the stress and the horrors. And you know, you have to forgive me this evening, because as if that were not bad enough news, as I was ready to leave the house at 3 o'clock, a young man who helped raise me, who is like my stepbrother, took his life in New York today. His business collapsed a few months ago. And between the sickness that he was facing and the inability to provide for his family, he did what, God forbid, all of us feel is unthinkable. So when I stand here this evening, I don't stand as leader of the Labour Party, a politician coming to talk to you. I come to talk to you about our country. And I come to talk to you with one simple message. That no amount of time will now heal the condition of Barbados. And this country will have to decide whether 15 or 16 will hold to ransom almost 300,000 people. They asked you for time in February. They lied. They told you all was well. And within a month, Chris Sinckler came as Minister of Finance and told you that not only was the economy still stable, not only was the medium-term strategy on track, but that he was going to have a 600 million stimulus. Propaganda and false hope, yet again. And in less than a month, the governor of the central bank finally began to let the truth come out the side of his mouth. And the full truth didn't come yet. It started to come out the side of his mouth. And on the Tuesday night, he issued a report saying that the medium-term fiscal strategy was not on track and it needed to be put back. And by the next morning, when he spoke, he told you, well, he didn't quite mean that it just needed some tweaking and some pushing and nudging. I do not know who spoke to him the Tuesday night. By the next week, the Minister of Finance did the unpardonable, and herein the loss of confidence begins. He went on radio in a live press conference, and he told the people of this country, there are problems, but I am going to wait 4 months before I bring you any medicine or prescription. I am going to bring a budget in August. And that was April. You know what happens when you don't get your medication on time. You know what happens when the ambulance does not turn up on time, as we were reading only in today's Sunday Sun. How could a Minister of Finance tell you that he knew that something was fundamentally wrong, but he would not come to you for another 4 months unless he was a 5-foot man in 7-foot water out of his depth? None of that in here. And then, on the 27th of June, a national consultation was called. And on that occasion, no longer anymore talk about a 600 million stimulus. No longer talk about a medium-term fiscal strategy. That was dumped in the wastebasket. All of a sudden, according to Delisle Worrell, needed to make a $425 million adjustment in 8 months. Now, people, you can't have a $400 million problem in 4 months. You can't put on 40 pounds in 4 days. You can't even lose 40 pounds in 4 days, as I have shown you. So that what we had was the beginning of the naked truth. The beginning of it. And the Prime Minister, out of place, made the worrying worse by telling you that the issue of devaluation would be something that he would fight against. Now, you don't draw attention to the problem if you are leader of a country. And all of that came to the point of the budget in August. And what happened then? What happened then? Chris Sinckler stood before the people of Barbados and the international community. For 2 days, we knew the situation with the foreign reserves. And for 2 days, we discussed among ourselves whether we would raise it or whether we would leave it, because we were sensitive to the national condition. And contrary to what most people might feel in the Democratic Labour Party, we are Barbadians first. And we actually took a decision that we would address the issue, but not refer specifically to the numbers that had fallen in the reserves. Lo and behold, within the first half hour of Chris Sinckler's speech, he delivered himself of the words that $300 million had fallen in our reserves, and that it was as a result of a loss of domestic confidence and international confidence. Now, you know that I used to practice criminal law. And you know that I know a confession when I see one. And you know that a man that had by then was now delivering his fourth budget speech and was in charge of the wheel of the economy and finance ministry for 3 years, that Kerry, was a confession from the dock that I, Chris Sinckler, have failed and failed miserably to protect you, the Barbadian people, in one of the most vital elements that you need to be protected in, so as not to fall mercy to poverty. And he got there, and he admitted it. And then he delivered a hodgepodge of ill-conceived policies. But we listened, we said that was what it was, and we told you we would wait and see. Wait and see. And wait and see we did. Only to find out within less than a week, Donville, who might have been the opening batsman on this occasion but wants to be the last man standing in the Democratic Labour Party, told you, no. Chris read the numbers wrong. And Clyde told you tonight that if you want him to read a number, write it in words. Don't give him the numbers. He told you that it was a mistake, the land tax, solid waste tax. Because by then, many of you were doing the calculations. And $700 per 100,000 would mean not only that people all over Barbados in tenantry land who were not paying land taxes would have to start paying land taxes again, but that people, all levels of society, would be soaked with taxes at the very time when they have no money in their pockets to accommodate it. He didn't tell you that the Commissioner of Land Tax had no lawful authority to collect it. And the Minister of Finance had to have known that when he announced it. He didn't tell you that the Minister of Finance gave you the wrong projection. It could only have been that he hadn't talked to the Land Tax Department, because he said it would raise 49 million, and we are now being told it would raise $173 million from the backs of Bajans if people could even afford to pay. And then, within less than a week, we had the Commissioner of Inland Revenue being forced to take issue and to correct the Minister of Finance again. One problem: when the minister speaks in a budget, his words become law under the Provisional Collection of Taxes Act. When the Commissioner of Inland Revenue speaks, or she takes an ad in the press or runs an ad on radio, it is nothing more than she, me, or you, or even Gearbox from the dead talking. No lawful authority. So that any company in Barbados now that had to work out the consolidation tax for people coming up at the end of September, thrown into total confusion. Is it 2% or 2.5%? Is it 3% or 3.5%? what they forgot to tell you too is that the Commission of Inland Revenue is to collect income taxes. There's no lawful authority to collect a consolidation tax. And that is why Erskine Sandiford in 1991, when he brought the stabilization tax, brought special legislation for it to be collected. But then you also saw that it is not only even on income. You know that if somebody give you a gift, somebody give you a cow and tell you hold this, I can't pay you, hold this cow, that they have the power to come and value the cow and tax you upon the cow. You know if they give you 2 turkeys for Christmas, they have the power to tax you upon the 2 turkeys. Whatever the gift is in kind. And all this time, the Minister of Finance, not a single word. But then again, if you were in the lap of luxury in Disney World, you couldn't be engaged in these trivial matters. These were just things that were tormenting Barbadians, not you. And then, when the confusion started to come with who would go home and who wouldn't, postmen, we were doing rubbing shoulders at Oyston's Fish Market, asked Kerry, and the call came through about the postmen who had been called into a meeting and told you do not and you must not come to work on the 1st of September. We were told about the memo from the police. We were told about the people at Soil Conservation who could not get paid. We were told about the people at Drainage. And the first thing the Prime Minister does is come and show that he either lives on Mars or he is contemptuous of you and tell you about a computer glitch. That is like the Light and Power telling you about a monkey pulling. I didn't say anything else as far as the monkey was concerned. But let me tell you this. After the computer glitch was the cause, when Kerry and I had the press conference and produced the memorandum from the Director of Finance, telling them, every ministry, every department, that they had to cut $50 million in temporary employees, in acting allowances, in substitutes. Remember Chris Sinckler said that they can't hire anybody in the budget? The director was only saying what Chris said in the budget. The budget that the Prime Minister chaired cabinet moved before it was delivered. And all of a sudden, the Prime Minister tells you, oh, we need to do a study. We need to see the impact of these things. And then proceeds to tell you what temporary means. But all of us know what temporary means because he is the very definition of temporary. People, you imagine a Prime Minister, Minister of Finance telling you that they would preside over $50 million in cuts without knowing what the implications are for the $50 million on temporary workers, activities. Do you know this day, when challenged, they have told us that the Richard Seeley it cannot be one rule for you and one rule for me. Can you believe that you will make a statement about the sending home of people and you have not done the study to see where they will get sent home from? If any private sector company were to do that in this country, the social partnership will hold them up by the short and curlies. And this year, we started 2013 with Lime wanting to send home people. And with the country being threatened to be shut down because people wanted the details of what those cuts would mean. But your Prime Minister and your Minister of Finance, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, I apologize, would make those cuts without telling you where they were to happen. And we are still waiting for the report because September 30th come and gone and October 31st coming up very soon in a few days. But as if that were not enough, the confession of which I spoke with technology isn't only restricted to Barbadian ears. And the very government knew that in March they would have to go to the international markets to borrow money to be able to pay wages and to service debt. Because the difference between the money the government earns and the money that it spends is simply too large that they can't bridge the gap. And they told us the night at 2 o'clock in the morning, they came to Parliament for Parliament to approve the largest ever borrowing in the history of this country. $1 billion, not million, billion. And when they came, they told you that it was half to close the deficit and half was to refinance existing debt. Now, which mad person would take debt you owe somebody and you paying them 7% interest? You can pay them off by borrowing from somebody at 9% to pay off the person at 7%? Man, the shopkeeper wouldn't even do that. And there was a company in the international market that their commentary started, call me crazy. But what is Barbados doing? Call me crazy. But why would Barbados borrow expensive money to pay off cheap debt? Well, call us crazy. Because why would a Minister of Finance announce that there was no confidence in his economy and then go to the international markets to borrow? It was folly. It was reckless. And it led to the international market saying, we agree with you. You say there is no confidence. And we too say we do not have the confidence to buy your bonds. And for the first time ever, Barbados, a country that was recognized as punching above its weight, a model. People say, we don't want your money. We don't want your business. We don't want your bond. That Minister of Finance had the gall to stand up in Parliament on Tuesday and tell you that it was because the US government shut down. You mean to tell me that the US government shutdown affect Barbados more than it affect the US? You mean to tell me that he believed that all of us are so foolish that we don't understand that there are 4 years of mismanagement, 5 years, not being able to pay your debt? I ain't talking about even the large capital debt. I'm talking about bills, toilet paper, the pharmaceuticals, the spare parts. That you think that they don't know that we can't pay? And when Don Villinis will tell you that I or the rest of the Labour Party are talking as if we want to share information with the international community, let me tell you this. They know more than you know. And they know more than you know because you have a government that will not talk to you nor tell you the truth. And they know more than you know because we have a Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation that all of a sudden cannot tell the people of Barbados any news that is anti-government. Well, let me tell you all this. As long as there's breath, thank God for the internet. Thank God for the internet. Because we will get the word out to you. But when you add the confusion in the budget, that people can't and don't know what taxes to pay, that people don't know if they're going to be in a job in a ministry next month or a statutory board, the rumors that are flying about the transport board, how, good Lord, can you cut $15 million without, and already 1/3 of the buses off the road? How can you cut a further $15 million without either raising bus fares or sending home people? You are not dealing with fools. You are not dealing with fools. And I say to you that ignorance abounds in the cabinet and insensitivity. I was told about a mother who had to wait 3 hours in the bus stand waiting for a bus. She had recently had a baby. She was lactating. And eventually some people in the bus stand gave her taxi fare to get home so she could go and nurse the baby. Do you understand that this is a country where services used to work? Do you understand that 1/3 of the buses not working because the Ministry of Finance can find it possible to put $1 million almost in a football tournament, to put $5 million in constituency councils, to put $6 million to give catering in summer camps? And the people at that hospital behind us today, if they need certain medication, can't get it. And I say to those who are rich or who got a piece of change in the pocket, don't only feel that it is poor people who will be affected, because if, God forbid, an accident occurs, you got one place to go. I hope that it is the hospital and nowhere that the Lord will take you. So that this is a matter that affects all of us. An ambulance costs $40,000. We can't get that. And what kind of mind, what kind of human being can choose to put politics above the welfare and well-being and health of people? I feel that they are as guilty as those who oppressed Barbadians 70 and 80 years ago. Because you cannot tell me that politics will dominate everything. And you know why it's foolish? Because the tournament ain't gonna help them. Because the constituency councils ain't gonna help them. Because the summer camps ain't gonna help them. Because the people of Barbados have had enough. So you're spending bad money. You could as well spend it in the medicine. You could as well give the police the pay. You have Christmas coming up. Everybody knows that what it is to be in town at Christmas time anyhow, far less in a recession, far less with confusion breeding. And the places in town, over 62 businesses have shut down. At the beginning of January, we had lost 16,000 jobs, and we have lost a good few thousand since then. I have come here tonight to give you one message. Chris Sinckler is out of his depth. He is a 5-foot man in 7-foot water. We could have gone against the government. And we know the government is out of their depth too. But follow me carefully. Barbados does not have the luxury of time. Follow me. We have reached a situation where every week, you hear me? Every week now matters. And we've reached a situation for every week that you defer the decisions that have to be made. Platform for growth and not the propaganda and false hope. You are going to cut the country into a rut that some of you may not live to see it come back out of. I went this morning and read back again on Jamaica, and the similarities are frightening. We are not yet at rock bottom, but we are moving at a fast pace towards there. And in life, you don't only look at where you are, but you look at the pace of the slide, the pace of the decline, the rate at which you're coming down the hill. And if you're coming down the hill at 10 miles per hour, anybody can catch you up. If you're coming down the hill at 100 miles per hour, God help you. And we now have a slide. When you thought that it was $300 million in loss of reserves in August, it hurt us. Something stick in our throat because memories of 91 started to come up. But the slide has not stopped. And God forbid, the governor of the central bank, and I'm going to come to him shortly, he needs to talk to this country with a level of frankness that hitherto has not been a signal part of his press conferences. We do not want any more propaganda, editorial propaganda. But what is happening is that we have a slide. We have two problems. We need to find $500 million between now and March to pay our wages in the public service and statutory boards and to service our debt and to pay our pensions. And it is a problem. That is why the bond was so important. This is not scare tactics. This is the reality. And it is public knowledge that we have not secured the bond. And your Minister of Finance has not told you how he will bridge the gap. And you have less than 5 months to do so. But we also have a problem with declining reserves at a pace that is not comfortable. And when we can lose 1/3 of our foreign reserves since the 1st of April, then we are moving at a pace that no Barbadian wants to be moving at. And while it brings back memories of 91, there's a fundamental difference with 91. I was in the Senate in 91. In 91, businesses still had savings when the adjustment came. In 91, households and people had savings when the adjustment came. Tonight, in the midst of any adjustment that will come, our households, our people, our businesses have been battered and kicked about for 4 to 5 years. And it is like asking a man or a woman who has not eaten for 4 weeks to run a marathon. They simply do not have the fuel in them to do so. And I say to you tonight, that time will not heal things. Time will not heal it. They asked you for time in February. And they came back and reverted to behavior. Sinckler didn't feel he had to clarify any budgetary initiative when the confusion started to reign. 9 weeks later, opposition asked for clarification. Private sector asked for clarification. Unions asked for clarification. and not a word has come out of his mouth other than to tell you that he couldn't get a bond for a U.S. government shutdown. And then, no lie, he tell you what you should do down Broad Street. But I only have to tell him that there's no need for me to do that, Chris, because you have already stripped the whole of Barbados naked. But you know what that speaks to? That speaks to suitability. And that is why others have been as appalled about that. And I want to thank all Barbadians who have supported me in ensuring that these comments, not because they are supporting me, but because comments are uncalled for and inappropriate from a minister of the Crown. And because it is not what we do in Barbados nor how we do our business. But you know, I have to beg you this, and I'm bringing you back. I don't want you to be distracted about any comment by me. Because I've told you, time will not heal this. And I want you to forget about those comments. Know that he liked cursing women. That is not what is at issue. What is at issue is what he will do for you to stop the decline in this economy, to protect your jobs, to ensure that people can go to the hospital and get treatment, that people can go to the buses and get home. That is what I want you to focus on. My back is broad. Don't worry about me. And I say to you that, you know what is the problem with Chris? He does not know, and he does not know that he does not know. He does not know, and he does not know that he does not know. We were blessed with Owen Arthur as a Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. And I want to thank Owen for speaking as eloquently as he did here this afternoon, this evening. Because what the people of Barbados will understand by now is that we put Barbados first at all times. But we were blessed. But there were other ministers of finance who were not economists, starting with Errol Barrow. Errol Barrow wasn't an economist. He may have done a little thing at LSE, a course or two, dabble a bit. Tom did PPE, Johnny can correct me, politics, philosophy, and economics before he did law. Bree was a lawyer. Richie Haynes was a doctor. But you know what all of them did? Finance was not an 8-to-4 job. And they immersed themselves in the discipline. They read. They did so in a way. They also surrounded themselves with people who could advise them. Tom had Steve Hemtage. Barra had his own. Bree. Richie had Wendell McLean and others. Who does Chris Sinckler than Delal World, with whom he is now a twin? You see one, you see the other. The only problem it is like bim and bam. But the noise out of their mouth is the same. And I say that it has reached a point where people believe that Delal World is running this economy, not the central bank. And the proof of it comes on Friday afternoon, and I want you to listen carefully for me, because this is but another sign in the destruction of our democratic traditions. Kerry Simmons, as leader of our business, came and told me, John Boyce has now told him, we this debate on Tuesday whether we're going to like it or not. Kerry? True, true, true. Kerry, fortunately, was with me when we met the Clerk of Parliament. And on Wednesday afternoon, the Clerk of Parliament told Kerry and myself that we could not give notice of the resolution on Friday because they were being a stickler for sticking to the 72 hours, and we received a clean definition of what 3 clear days meant, and that it could not again, and he brought along with him the Interpretation Act. No problem. At about 4:30, 5 o'clock, you brought to me the letter from the Speaker, from the Clerk, because the Speaker was not at Parliament on Friday, indicating that I would be required to give notice of the motion on Tuesday, the 22nd of October. That accords with what I expected. Now, when you give notice, you do so that members of Parliament can get a copy of the resolution. And I could not stand up here and read this resolution to you tonight without being cited for contempt of Parliament, because I can't share it with you or the public without giving notice formally in Parliament. That is the procedure. And this government has already shown that it is not frightened to cite Kerry and me for contempt, to do until they lost the vote 3 months ago. Because wickedness will always fall, never prosper. Remember they tried to cite me and Kerry for contempt? And they lost the vote. So that I cannot share with the thousands of you here tonight what this motion has against Chris Sinckler. I have to give notice of it Tuesday at 10. Never before have you given notice and gone straight to debate, because it is understood that people read the charges. Because a motion of no confidence is no different from a charge sheet. You don't arrest a man, charge him, and put him in the dock at the same time and hear the evidence unless you're living in some totalitarian regime. That don't happen about here. But let me tell you, they will not get the chance to say that we are not ready. Because you know that I don't read from paper. So I could do the motion last night, last week, and next week. And you know from listening to Kerry Simmons this evening that he ready too. But you know who they are trying to get at? Because they can't affect us. You will read the motion for the first time on Wednesday morning in the newspaper. And by that time, the motion would have been shut down, debated, voted, so by the time the people of Barbados see the motion, this government has run to shut it down in a can. Well, I have a message, boys, for Frondell Stewart, for Kerry. Kerry, I want you to carry it. I want you to carry it. They, John Boyce, can try to shut down a parliament. They can try because they understand that there's a movement growing in Barbados where tens of thousands of people want to sign. They want to sign the petition. They want to say they have no confidence in Chris. But there are a few others who are more cautious and who have said, we want to read the no confidence motion before we sign. As is their right to be. All of us don't reach the finish line at the same point. Some of you know that Chris Inna used to be the Minister of Finance. Others now want to be persuaded. When you seek to shut it down, you can shut down the motion in Parliament, but you cannot shut down the motion of the people in the country. And this petition, therefore, will continue for at least another week after the people see the motion of no confidence. Because under the Inter-American Democratic Charter, you have a right to see. Under the best things that we know about fairness in this country, you have a right to see. But this government is not only frightened for you, the people. The governor of the central bank is to talk Wednesday. So that they want to make sure that when the governor of the central bank speaks, the debate has been shut down and we can't comment on what the governor said. Well, poor fellas, I have news for you. We talking next Sunday at St. George at conference. And if the governor of the central bank does not tell the country what he needs to tell the country in clear terms, we will deal with him next weekend. And those who cannot come to conference, watch it on YouTube. But you have a government that for the first time will take action to rush everything through. No problem, because I'm ready. But you're hurting the people of Barbados who have a duty to read and to understand and to comment. And you cannot hide from the people because the people are more than you. You cannot shut down the people. And no amount of 15 people voting can thwart the will of a people when people have made up their minds. And no amount of bringing emotion the day before the governor gives his 9-month review will stop us from being able to comment on the governor's report. And I want to say this. When the governor comes on Wednesday, I don't want the plenty editorial comment, because the last 2 or 3 reports, he didn't even tell us the numbers easily. He tell us how many weeks we got in import cover. We can go to the back, but the truth is, who goes to the back and reads tables? I do, Clyde does, Owen does, Kerry, some economists from the Barbados Economic Society, a few people. But most people hear what they hear on radio in the headlines, or see what they see in the paper. Just like the notion of 1,500 jobs in yesterday's paper. What kind of false hope and propaganda you're putting on people? That would cause you to believe that 1,500 jobs coming to the people who lost the jobs in tourism, or who on 2 and 3 day week within a matter of months. But you wouldn't believe that those 1,500 jobs not even in sight for a year. Because you have to knock down the hotel in a year's time. You have to build it back up. You have to wait 3 years. And that is the propaganda that is being foisted on the people. But I want to hear the governor on how it is that the decline in our reserves, and I don't want September 30th figures. I want figures up to last week. And I want to know what is going to be done about it. And I want to know how you are going to find the funding to finance the deficit, to make sure that Barbadians can be paid as public servants, or that Barbados will be able to service its debt, or that Barbadians can have the confidence that pharmaceuticals and food at school meals and toilet paper at the hospital and disinfectant at the geriatric and at the prison, all of those things can be bought. I want to know from the minister, from the governor of the central bank, to talk to us directly about the state of the decline in tourism figures. We already know that tourism has declined for almost 18, 19 months straight. But down to the end of September, the decline is 6.2%. Decline upon last year, that was in decline. So when you have decline upon decline, really going to rock bottom. I want to hear from the governor of the central bank, not the decline in arrivals, but the decline in expenditure. Because we know we left $2.3 billion being spent from the tourism sector. And last year, spending in tourism was down to $1.7 billion, even though prices had gone up by 33%. So that if you were to earn the same value of what we were earning in tourism. Last year, instead of earning 1.7, you should have been earning 3.1 billion. So you understand that we are earning almost half of what we should in the tourism sector. I want the minister and the governor to tell us what is the state of the discussions with the Inter-American Development Bank loan that the same minister told us is absolutely necessary. 100 million US dollars, of which 50 million is necessary to spend at the Barbados Tourism Authority for them to do marketing. And of that 50 million, 13 million US is to go to arrears. Do you know that Barbados owe the marish and the parish from London to Toronto to New York to Miami to Trinidad to Brazil, that we owe everybody out? And you know what hurts? This is the same party that Errol Barrow led. And when the Americans told Mr. Barrow, when we became independent, that they would pay for Barbados to become members of the Organization of American States, Mr. Barrow told them, where I come from, if we cannot pay the dues, we do not join the club. Bajans are people. We do not walk about owing the world. And certainly not in the thing that pays our bills, tourism. But the country has a duty to be told. Almost 3 months later, what is the status of the IDB loan? Have you been able to give money to the Barbados Tourism Authority such that instead of the $88 million you spent in marketing in 2011, you're now spending 59 million when less people must come? And we now have the indignity that a country where Concorde used to run, Concorde, you know, Barbados was one of the few countries where Concorde was a scheduled flight. You believe that you can't get up and say you're going to New York from January and get a first class ticket? And that the tourists who come here from the northeast corridor of the States are people with a piece of change. They're not traveling no low-cost carrier to get to Barbados or coming through Miami to get to Barbados. And one hotel already last week had a loss, a cancellation, 200 room nights, because the group coming from New York said they cannot afford to overnight in Miami. Business, which will no doubt go to or Jamaica or Bahamas. You have to understand that the Minister of Finance is the one who makes the choices. Government is about choices. Do I spend money and give it to councils? Do I give money to football? Do I give the money to the hospital? Do I give the money to the university? Do I give the money to the Barbados Tourism Authority? And that he has sat there and that he continues to perpetuate politics first, and that he continues to be out of depth such that he does not even understand how to protect the loss of reserve. Chris, trust me, this ain't personal, but you need to step one side and let the people get on with the business. You got to step one side now. Because a time will come we will not be able to put it back. So I come to you tonight to tell you, time will not change anything. And we will either decide, like the person who is a diabetic who has a cut on the toe, you either go and get it dealt with, or if you don't deal with it, you're going to lose the toe. And if you still drink rum or eat foolishness or get cut again, you're going to lose the foot. And when nonsense, you're going to lose from the knee down. And figuratively speaking, Barbados is now the knee. And the decision is, will we lose our hip, or will sepsis take over our bloodstream and take us out? He has tried to give you 2 Panadol for a triple bypass. It cannot work. It cannot work. And you know what is sad? That Wednesday morning, because you see, you have to understand the dynamics of politics. Many of these guys only have one term. They don't yet have a pension. And I asked the people of Barbados, between now and Tuesday, speak to your members of parliament and ask them to put Barbados first. If they don't have a pension and they don't vote the right way to save themselves, they lose their pension. But I believe that the people of Barbados will agree with me that we have already had precedent. Johnny, you were the pensions man. You remember when Mr. Sandiford called the election? He left Leroy Braffett and a whole set of them out to sea without a pension. And in good conscience, people work. People ought to be able to get their pension. It is true that they missed theirs by a matter of weeks. These guys are out by about, what it is? 3 years? 2.5 years? But I know that you, like me, feel that it is cheaper to pay them their pension and let them leave than for you to endure them for another 2.5 years to get their pension. And now you really want to tell them, don't let the pension confuse you. Take your pension and go. We want you to focus on the country, not the pension. Because if you focus on the country, perhaps if the electorate had given you 1812, 3 or 4 of you could do what is in your heart to do, because they really don't want to vote for Chris. They don't want to vote for him. But what is them is the instinct of survival. And while they seek to survive, you will suffer. And that is what our politics has come to in this country tonight. So I ask you, remind your members of parliament, hope that you can find them in the next 2 days. Call them, bounce into them, mail them to the house, come to parliament, and tell them we are watching how you vote, because we are suffering in this country. And this now is not about Chris Sinckler personally. This is about the fact that we accept that there's no confidence in him. Chris confessed it in the budget, and the international community, as Owen has told you, has also confirmed it. Would you send a man to do business for you to people that don't trust the man? No. But nobody would do that. And therefore, if he no longer enjoys the confidence of the international community, if he no longer enjoys the confidence of ordinary Bajans, of the private sector, he didn't even go to report to them on Friday at the subcommittee meeting the progress card on the budget. But if you were going to report 1 out of 20, you won't go neither, I suppose. He didn't go to meet with the IMF in the Barbados bilaterals, even though he was in Washington for 5 days. So if he is ducking and hiding from all who matter, then I say enough is enough. And Chris, the time has come for you to go. And I say to you that we will not let up as long as there is despair in this country. We will not let up until despair becomes hope. We will not let up as long as people have to wait in A&E for 24 hours, and then when they get seen only to be told the medication not there. We will not let up as long as people can't get to work on time because the bus is 2 and 3 hours late. We will not let up as long as people are on 2 and 3 day weeks and are the only breadwinner in that household. We will not let up as long as people from FedEx and the banks and all about the place being laid off. You understand people going to work in the morning, come and get a letter when they go home in the evening? Do you understand the psychological trauma? And if it means that the language of the government government is to get military against us, then so be it, because we shall not let up. We shall not let up until the confidence of the international community is restored and that they can admire Barbados as they have done for decades. We shall not let up. As long as people in the Caribbean pulling you one side and asking you, what really happened to Barbados? What you all doing? What you doing to the commissioner? What you doing to this? What you doing? We shall not let up until we can walk tall and stand proud. And for those who say they are waiting to hear from the opposition, let me tell you this. We have already put things on the table that this government has dismissed with scant respect. The most important economic change this government can make is to its economic policy on energy. Only last week, I got a copy of the accounts of the Barbados National Oil Company, a state company. And down to March 2012, do you know that a state company owned in your name makes $53 million in profit while you can't even get a light bill paid? We have told them that it is criminal for the government as shareholder to maintain a pricing policy that charges fuel oil prices for oil coming out of Barbados ground at world market prices, because that is not their cost of production, nor even with a little rate of return. In fact, it costs us less than half of world market prices, but you are now to suffer for the price gouging of the Democratic Labour Party government at the Barbados National Oil Company. It is wicked, it is worthless, and it is callous. They announce an energy rebate for hotels. We did the numbers. $2,400 a hotel paying $48,000 a month in electricity would save. And they would only save $400 if they spent money on renewables in 12 months. Under the Barbados Labour Party policy, we would reduce the kilowatt hour charge for the fuel charge because of passing through the cost on local production. We would reduce it by about 12 cents a kilowatt hour. So it meant that hotel that was $48,000 a month had $32,000 in fuel cost, would save $9,500 a month as compared to the government's $2,400. Are you going to tell me that you got apologists for this government telling us about policies? Let me also say this. The problem is not you, nor you, nor you, nor you, nor me, nor Johnny, nor Kerry, nor nobody around here. There is only one entity that can make a decision in this country that matters. There is only one entity that can stop the bleeding, and that is the Cabinet of Barbados. Do not let anybody fool you. Do not let anybody fool you. It's a case of what can be, what should be, what ought to be. We can only now deal with what is, because the people and government of Barbados have a gun at our head. And the most important thing is get the gun from the head, stop the bleeding, and let us move on with the building of this country. So that I say to you, we shall not let up. And if night shall fall on Tuesday, and 15 shall endorse the conduct of Chris Sinckler, and that 15 comes to stand, not against the 14 of the Labour Party, but the tens of thousands of Barbados, then we will continue to be creative in how we communicate to the government. Frandell Stewart then and his cabinet become the problem, and not just Chris Sinckler, because they will have endorsed the bad behavior. I said many a time when I was Attorney General, I could not guarantee that one of the 1,500 police might not do something untoward. But I could guarantee that once I learned about it, I would hold them accountable. Frondel Stewart and the cabinet will learn about the illegalities, will learn about the lack of confidence, will learn about the confessions, will learn about the dismal performance of every aspect of this economy. And if they choose to hold up Chris as opposed to the country, then the future will have to be settled not against Chris, but against the Democratic Labour Party government. And there are many who are urging me to move quicker than I want to move. But we will walk solid, and we will walk straight. And this bus is not a red bus. This bus is not a yellow bus. This bus is not a blue bus. This is a bus called Barbados Bus, and let the people get on. Because as God is my witness, as long as there is breath in my body, Barbados will always come first. And if it is that some men in government must be offended, then let them be offended. And if it is that some men must say that they feel that crackheads must come, I say, watch out, because the people have always dominated in history over those who feel that they can crack heads. Always won out. And if it is that there are those here tonight of doubtful spirit, recognize that this cause is greater than any one of us. We cannot do it alone. You cannot do it alone. But in the name of God, we will do it together. Good night and God bless.